Welcome back, everyone. My name is Joe, and over the last year, I've documented my journey of writing a first novel. In fact, a trilogy of novels called Rivendoa. I live with my husband Richard and our granddaughter Hannah on 6 acres of land nestled in the wilds of Virginia. Every Monday, I post a video sharing the joys and challenges of writing a first novel. In this week's video, I'm sharing another treasured book review, The War of the Worlds by G.Wells. So, come along and join me on my adventures in living as a writer and an artist. Hey everyone, welcome back to my author's channel here on YouTube. Today I want to share another treasured book in my collection, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, the father of science fiction. This book falls into my top 3 books or novels that I have read of all time, my favorites. I don't know why this is exactly. It's not necessarily the best book that I've ever read, but there is something in the narrative and in the story that draws me back again and again. And I kind of want to look at that today and why that is. I suppose only the gods of storytelling know for sure why, but I'm going to give it a try here in today's video. I purchased this hardcover edition, I guess a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, and it is an H.G. Wells collection. It includes The Time Machine, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Invisible Man, The First Man on the Moon, The Foods of the Gods, and of course, The War of the Worlds. You know, this is a nice edition, but it is awful big and bulky. And I have this paperback book that I have had for probably about 10 or 15 years now that I've read multiple times. And I love it because it has this cover illustration by Henrique Alvim Correa, who created the illustration for a 1906 publication of the novel, and it was a French publication. In my opinion, the illustrations in this edition are some of the best that have ever been created for The War of the Worlds. So take a look at them here and see what you think. As wonderful as these illustrations are, it was actually another artist who captured my imagination and influenced my visual ideas about the War of the Worlds for many years after seeing them. I first read the book when I was 10 years old, I believe. And after being given this hardback edition illustrated by Edward Gorey, who was not only an illustrator, but a writer, poet, and a Tony Award-winning costume designer. Quite the Renaissance man. This edition was published in 1960 and came to me about 10 years later. Gorey's pen and ink illustrations of H.G. Wells' story were both unsettling and a revelation to me as a budding young artist. Take a look at them here. Now, the reason that I shared these illustrations is because when I was 10 years old, after having read The War of the Worlds and being inspired by the story and the illustrations in the book that I read, I've tried my own hand at creating an illustrated version of The War of the Worlds. And I did it in sort of a comic book form, which is how I kind of saw at the time that I would understand doing it. How these survived over the course of my life is anyone's guess. And it's absolutely a mystery to me. All the moves and the different places I've lived, and somehow they survived all the boxes and being moved back and forth so many times over the years. So I'm going to go ahead and share these kind of funny comic strip style drawings of the War of the Worlds that I created probably in 69, 70, or 71. Wells' story sort of invented the genre of the alien invasion before most of the world even had considered the idea. Of course, at the time, very little was known about Mars. Telescopes were, celestial telescopes were in their infancy. Most of the planets looked like little smudges at a distance, and so the imagination of Wells was fertile with the ideas of what might be on Mars, and if something was on Mars, any living beings, would they ever come to Earth? And I guess that was the seed for his story. This work of fiction by Wells is unique in many ways. I think it was the first book that I ever read that was written in first-person perspective. And oddly enough, the narrator's name is never mentioned anywhere in the story. Um, the Wells's character is sort of at the heart of the narrative, being present at almost every major event, from the beginning of the invasion to the ultimate conclusion of the novel. And in a way, it reads very much like a diary entry or a news article, lending an air of believability to the story. So you might ask, what is it about this story that has stuck with me? And what I've always been drawn to is the slow evolution of the invasion as it unfolds. It depicts the fall of civilization in a matter of days after the Martians descend on Earth in their large cylinders. The narrator's description of the observatory in the darkness, watching Mars, the fall of the first cylinder on Horsell Common, his first view of the Martians in the sandpit, and the coming of the heat ray, and finally the emergence of the giant tripods that will soon dominate all of human civilization. The story travels from the small village of Maybury to the cobbled streets of London, which at the time was the greatest city in the world. The narrator and eventually his brother, the story follows their view of what's happening as they watch the destruction of all that they hold dear and believe to be safe and secure. They slowly begin to realize that man is no longer the dominant species on Earth. So why has The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells always held my interest as a novel, and why would it be in my top three? I guess the idea or the end of the world story narrative is something that has always intrigued me as a reader. Reading about ordinary men and women faced with challenges beyond their control that turns their notion of the world upside down has always fascinated me. I think, and at some point, I think I would like to try my hand at writing such a story. Unfortunately, it has been written that, the alien invasion concept has been written so many times. It's been filmed so many times. There's so many movies and books that I would really have to come up with some unique premise in order to make it a viable book. I have a couple of thoughts in mind about that, and maybe it's someday I'll sit down and after I get through my Rivendell trilogy and my some of the other things that I definitely want to get written, I might try my hand at that and see if I can come up with something unique and different. Well, if you've never read this humble sci-fi adventure, I would definitely recommend reading The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. It's a great read, and it even though it takes place over 120 years ago, there are elements and ideas in the book that I think all of us can relate to today if we were in similar circumstances. So anyway, it's a great read. If you haven't, give it a try. And if you have, maybe take a peek at it once more, and maybe you'll reevaluate it a little bit. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's treasured book review. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button if you can. And if you liked it, let me know, because every click helps. You can also post any ideas you have in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts on this book review. Oh, also, if there's any books that you would like me to review that are not on my list, go ahead and throw it in there, and and I'll think about whether it's something that I feel comfortable doing a book review on. Maybe it's something I'll read from scratch that I've never read before, that you can recommend to me. So anyway, until next time, I will see you on the road to Rivendoa.